to welcome back our Claude Letourneau, the President and Chief Executive Officer at Svante, who will discuss a path to building a CO2 marketplace. Claude actually presented at our very first innovation episode in March last year. So it's really wonderful to have you back here, Claude. Go ahead.
Thank you, Olga. Very nice for the invitation. First slide, please. So achieving a net zero carbon emission is probably the most fundamental and difficult task to stabilize the climate. So let's get one thing straight. What we're trying to do here is to basically capture the carbon that's been generated by the fossil fuel and putting it back to where it came from, which is storage underneath the seafloor. So CCS for us, the volume that people are looking at to achieve the climate change is about 10 gigatons. So just to put things in perspective, 10 gigaton at the value of carbon capture is about the size of the oil and gas industry today in reverse, mind-boggling. So we're trying to develop here a physical market for CO2 management that will require the management of the CO2 and capturing it and storing it. If you can get the next slide, please. So in order to achieve this, we have a demonstration plant that's running today in Canada on a natural gas boiler of 10,000 tons per year of capture of CO2. And we are looking now to deploy within the next 3 years our first commercial plant of about 1.5 million tons per year of CO2 capture from a cement factory owned by Lafarge Olson. And the project has been selected in Colorado, right next to an existing CO2 pipeline that Occidental is managing. So we've put together all of the stakeholders in the CO2 marketplace that we see to be able to develop the project so that we could be shovel ready by the end of 2023 to start construction. So our solution is an engineering solution compared to a nature-based that people may be looking at. And our unique filter is capable of both applying to point source or can be applied to a direct air capture. Next slide, please. So we have a four-pillar market entry strategy. The first one is to focus on existing industrial facilities, primarily that are burning natural gas to make steam for their processes. So it's an end-of-the-pipe, non-intrusive solution. We're also focusing on cement because it's a hard-to-abate industry where CO2 is coming not necessarily from fossil fuel, but half of it is coming from the rock itself. We're looking at blue hydrogen as a solution to create a clean fuel that would require carbon capture on an existing steam methane reformer. And finally, with a partnership that we've established with Climeworks, we are adapting our unique filter for air capture application that Climeworks would embed it into their system. So next slide. So we talk about the CO2 marketplace. We believe this will be very similar in terms of a framework. So we need to create a commercial framework where policy, finance, and industry players are all aligned. And we believe that the model being used by a deployment of renewable over the last 15 years is probably similar. So the difference is that the emitter itself would be industrial emitters. They would have a flue gas to a project developer that would take this, and then you need to physically move in the pipeline or ships the CO2 to a CO2 hub that most of the oil and gas players are today developing around the world. And then that project core would then rely on us in getting the technology, a conventional EPC organization to capture the CO2 and put it into a balance of plant. And then obviously the different tax credit or tax incentive or voluntary market that we see from the pledge being made by certain companies on net zero to provide the capital to build these plants. Up to you now. Any questions? That was just a teaser on some getting the marketplace discussion going. Great teaser.
Thank you so much for that. I do have a question for you. You mentioned in your introduction the emergence of a new industry. You called it the CO2 management. Can you expand on who will be the key players and how they will commercially interact. And is there a specific carbon price that needs to exist in order for this to happen? And you talked about voluntary, but also perhaps mandated as well.
Well, very good question. So the marketplace to me is a place where you have offer and demand. So the offer is basically the CO2 being emitted in industrial plants, like the focus of cement or hydrogen plant. And then there needs to be a demand for it. The demand will come basically from the voluntary net zero pledge being made by primarily consumer type companies like Microsoft and Amazon, who are pledging for 40 million ton just for Microsoft as an example. So they will be looking, because of consumer pressure, to push down to the different level, we call it scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 of carbon management, down to their supplier base, the CO2 management, and what we call the LCA, which is the life cycle analysis of your product, understanding how much carbon you're emitting. So once this is in place, this will basically trigger a market where I believe these companies will be looking to make investment in project development in the slide you saw earlier, where these capture plants will be built. And then suddenly a cement factory will be now a source of CO2 as opposed to trying to resolve the problem by itself, to capture and manage the CO2 by itself, which is quite difficult. Their business is to make cement. It is not to capture CO2. So that marketplace of offer and demand, will be in place, and it's coming. So what we're missing now is project developer who have the appetite of deploying large amount of capital, similar to renewable 20 years ago, at a very acceptable return investment. So to have an acceptable return investment in the 10 to 15% IRR, you will probably need a price on carbon somewhere between $50 to $100 per ton, depending on the source of CO2 that you use. So industrial, high concentration, you can get things working at $50. But if you go to direct air capture, you'll probably need somewhere in the range of $100 to $150 per ton. And the 45Q tax credit we have today in the United States is a way of getting the ball rolling and monetizing the CO2. And eventually, I think the voluntary market will take over, and offer and demand. There will be more demand for CO2 net zero than there is companies like us capable of delivering CO2 capture plant.
I want to zoom in on one point that you made regarding net zero pledges. Obviously, it sounds like you have a tremendous number of solutions for companies to reduce emissions right there in their operations. Now, there could still be cases where that's just not economic or impossible right now today. And so these companies might reach out and try to figure out how to buy offset credits. Could you talk to me about how you see the offsets market, growing in the next several years, and how you can play a part in that in terms of maybe reducing emissions somewhere else, having them verified? Because right now we don't really have a global standardized way to even manage and track these, the way these offset credits work. The programs are in those silos. So could you talk about how you can play a part in the offset market that's set to increase in the next few years?
So first of all, we need to level the playing field in making sure that everybody plays with the same rule of engagement to manage carbon. Yes. So that's the number one. So I think, unfortunately, we'll have to go through a price on carbon that's going to be in the range of $100 to $150 per ton, that society can afford as a whole. And once you have this in place, then you need what people refer to as BCA, which is a border adjustment, a carbon adjustment tax, which is a way of saying my good coming into my country has this proper carbon footprint. Therefore, if you dealt with the carbon at the point of source, that's fine. If not, then there is an amount of money being captured to do these things. It's the only way you can get the industry to be stabilized, so you can do these projects, and a country or an industry is not penalized because it has the highest source of CO2 to do this thing at the lowest cost for society. Example being cement industry, where you can do things at $50 per ton, but putting a carbon capture price of $50 per ton on cost of cement would call for cement producer to double the price of cement. So that industry as a whole is difficult to manage this. But if you look at the amount of cement that goes into a building that Amazon uses to do all its inventory warehousing, it's not significant, and $100 per ton for the cement being used by the industry can be a way of financing these plants. So the offsetting will come from the industry adopting the problem as a whole instead of industry by industry. And then whoever pays for the capture plant should own the offset associated with it, in my mind.
Fair point. You mentioned CBA, and I know that right now the European Union is slowly working on rolling out their mechanism for adjusting for carbon taxation based on how carbon intensive future products will be. It's a stage approach. We don't really know too many details on which areas, which industries would be targeted first. We do know it's a slow rollout, and they're talking to the stakeholders who are involved. We have this time as it's being developed. What should we start doing right now in terms of coordinating, making sure that this mechanism serves as a jump point to get that carbon market that you're talking about started on a global scale? What should we be doing now? Who should we be talking to, and how should that standardization happen? And what are we not doing?
Well, I think you have certain countries who are more progressive than others in establishing these difficult decisions as government. So these are policies. So it has to be done by governments. So I think Europe, because of the nature of Europe, it's a European community. They have every one of these small countries have to work as an entity called Europe, and therefore you need to establish this thing within the European community. So I think you'll see the experiment of doing it within Europe first, and then you need to link this one back to North America. And Canada took, the Canadian government made a very bold move a few weeks ago, just before Christmas, of saying we're going to set the price of carbon at $170 Canadian, which is $135 US. That's bold. And we're going to embed it into it BCA, so Border Carbon Adjustment Tax, to align ourselves with Europe. That's the beginning. And I hope other countries will do the same.
Thank you so much. Could we go back to talking about some of your technologies? I want to zoom in on a project that you're really excited about, that you just, it's something that you've been paying extra attention to, and talk us through about where you want to see that project in the next several years. One of the projects that you are most excited about.
Well, we have several going on, but the one that we're laser focused on right now is to be ready, basically, to be able to build a first commercial plant of about 1 million ton on cement. And we've picked a relationship with Lafarge and Oxy and Total to do this thing. So right now we have a 1 ton per day small plant running at Lafarge Olson in Vancouver. We're actually in the process of building now a second plant for carbon capture from natural gas boiler with Chevron in California. And then we have our eyes basically on this larger project with Lafarge. But there's a few others that stay tuned, like we say, that we'll be announcing this year in the hydrogen field, and also on heat exchanger and boiler types of environment that we'll be able to focus on. So we're trying to develop a pipeline of projects, but at the same time, we need to scale up our manufacturing facility to make the filters, because nobody makes these filters around the world. So we are today where lithium-ion batteries was 20 years ago, where an industry emerged out of this thing. So an industry will emerge out of the nano filters that we make. So we're building the first plant in the next couple of years. And at the same time, we are scaling up the size of our machine to a diameter that allows us to operate at the scale of commercial plants. So very exciting times. We're closing a major investment series in excess of $100 million to achieve this. We'll be announcing it very shortly with a very, very good channel to market partners. So we're quite excited about this.
Great. One final question. We have about a minute left. If you could tell me, what are some surprising things that you've learned from implementing this project? What are some takeaways that you will definitely be paying attention to for your future development?
I entered into this venture 4 years ago and thought it was a technology problem that needed to be resolved. It is not the case. It is not a technology issue. It is one of making sure that policy, finance, and industry players are working together, aligned, and we can develop a sustainable business where everybody makes money with a waste material that is CO2 that pollutes the atmosphere. And number two, I think over the last few years, I saw the industry or the consumer accepting a carbon price to do these things. They just don't know how to funnel the money into the industry. And that's the challenge we need to resolve as a society within the next little year, so because time is running out.
Well, what a great statement to end on. Thank you so much to all who have joined us and participated. This was excellent, Claude and Jonathan. The future of energy solutions is truly bright, thanks to visionary leaders like you. And now, back to our Global Energy Center Director, Randy Bell.
Thank you, Jonathan, Claude, and Olga. And Olga, thank you again for leading the charge on what's been an incredible addition to our program this year.